order for you to understand MRP, it is important for you to understand that while MRP can be used in lean environments and pull systems, it is primarily used in push system environments. Another piece of the puzzle that you should know is that MRP is not typically used to schedule independent demand items. In fact, it almost never is. Instead, it is used to schedule dependent demand items. In the next few modules, you will look at push, pull, dependent, and independent demand items. One more thing, too. In a push system, such as MRP, the bill of materials explodes, causing dependent demand to be scheduled. Typically, the master schedule is used for scheduling independent demand items, but you'll hear more about that soon. We'll see you in the next module. Throughout your MRP journey, you will hear the terms push system and pull system. With these two systems are often discussed together, they are two completely different systems. Put simply, a pull system is a technique used to produce only what has demand attached to it. In other words, inventory or information is only pulled when triggered or demand signal is generated. Kanban is a very popular example of a pull system. MRP can work with pull systems, but it requires a lot of training and change in behavior. In the most basic sense, people would need to learn to only respond to exception messages, action messages, notifications, or other triggers that are generated by the MRP system. In addition to this, only real orders should be placed into the system. Even still, with these changes, MRP is not a full-fledged pull system. In reality, it is a push system. A push system is the opposite of a pull system. A push system is the production or performance of any item or activity performed at required times by a given schedule that has been planned in advance. Let's look closer at both pull systems and push systems. We can't start learning about pull systems until we first define and understand what a pull system is. So, let's begin by doing just that. In the most basic sense, a pull system is a technique used to produce only what has a demand attached to it. Pull systems are also used to replace inventory items or information which may have been taken to fulfill a demand. Pull systems really operate from two fundamentally different aspects. The first perspective is that pull systems only produce what is demanded for or consumed by a customer. This is very important. If there is no customer attached to the demand, it is not produced. The other aspect is that withdrawals do not occur unless the operation using the information or physical inventory has demand for it. In other words, both materials and information will not be produced unless a trigger or signal comes from a downstream user. The fundamental concept in a pull system is that the customer creates the demand which naturally creates a trigger. Nothing occurs unless there is a customer attached to the demand. In a pull system, the demand is created by an external customer, and that demand travels all the way back through the value stream by downstream or internal customers at each operation. One very common everyday example of a pull system is at a grocery store. Supplies are not replenished until a customer pulls the item from the shelf. And that's it, a pull system. Now, let's test your retention of your new knowledge here by challenging your mind with a question that you can answer in the community. In a pull system, who generates or triggers the demand needed for withdrawal or production? We look forward to reading your comments, and we'll see you in the next module. While a push system is not the same as a pull system, in order for you to really master pull systems, you must understand a push system too. So let's do just that. A push system is the production or performance of any item or activity performed at required times by a given schedule that has been planned in advance. Many push systems are built mainly to forecast. Push systems can also include issuing material or performing an activity based on a schedule rather than a need. Push systems create excess inventory, which is one of the 8 forms of waste. Remember, a push system means that a company produces goods according to a demand forecast. A common manufacturing environment for push systems is a make-to-stock manufacturing environment. These types of production environments are often used to produce goods that have almost no fluctuation in demand. In essence, push systems attempt to anticipate future demand using historical data. Let's look at an example of using a push system. K&K owns a bakery. Every morning they forecast how much they were going to sell throughout the day, and then they produce their goods. They have tried baking to demand, however, people are not willing to wait for their morning muffin after they have ordered it. So, they bake their products and then put them out for customers to select. This is a push system. Some more examples are MRP systems, building to schedules, APS systems, and of course, forecasts. Now that you know what a push system is, let's challenge your new knowledge. What positive or negative effects might a push system have on an organization? We'll see you in the next module. One of MRP's most important activities is to transform independent demand into dependent demand. Independent demand is done at a master scheduling level, while dependent demand is calculated. Let's take a look at an example. Let's take, for example, item A. This item, A, is an independent demand item. This is what the customer orders. In other words, it is the end item. But to make item A, we need 2 of item B and 2 of item C. You can also see that item B is made with 2 of item D and 4 of item E. In addition to this, C is made with 2 of item F and 4 of item G. These components are dependent demand that is used to make item A. You may be wondering, how do I know how many of each component I need? This is calculated by MRP using the bill of materials. As you can see, item A is an independent demand item and is built with dependent demand items. When MRP calculates the amount of dependent demand items needed to build the independent demand, it uses the bill of materials and the number of end items ordered to calculate what is needed. We'll look into this with more detail in upcoming modules, as well as the details of independent and dependent demand. We'll see you soon. One of the core purposes of any inventory management strategy is to ensure that inventory levels are balanced in such a way that they can support demand. Inventory is categorized by demand patterns, which create the need for inventory and drive that need through an organization. There are two types of demand: independent demand and dependent demand. Let's look a little closer at these two forms of inventory demand. Independent demand is an item that generates demand all by itself. In other words, it is not dependent or related to any other form of demand or item. Some examples of independent demand might be finished goods, replacement parts, parts used for testing, service or repair parts, and end items. Let's look a little deeper. Here is an example that will be easy for you to understand. Let's say you call your favorite pizza shop and order your favorite pizza. When you get your pizza, you see your favorite toppings, cheese, sauce, and the pizza pie crust. The independent demand is the end item pizza that you love so much. The entire pizza is what you ordered, so its demand is unrelated to anything else. However, when we dig into our pizza, we learn that many of the toppings, sauces, and cheese are used on other pizzas as well. These items are known as dependent items because they have other dependencies or other related demands. Let's look a little deeper at dependent demand. Dependent demand is the demand for components, raw materials, or other sub-assemblies that are either related to or come from a bill of materials structure. To put it simply, dependent demand is related to other items and is typically generated from end items. This demand does not occur on its own. It occurs when there is demand for a parent item. Another thing to note about dependent demand is that it should not be forecasted. It is generally calculated using a material requirements planning system. In other words, it is calculated. Let's look at our pizza again as an example. Every pizza requires one pizza pie crust, 16 ounces of cheese, and 10 fluid ounces of sauce. In addition, when a customer orders a pizza, they get 10 pieces of each topping. So let's say a customer orders 2 pepperoni pizzas. These are the independent demand. Our system would automatically calculate that we need 2 pizza pie crusts, 32 ounces of cheese, and 20 fluid ounces of sauce. We would also need 20 pieces of pepperoni. As you can see, the dependent demand is directly linked to the bill of materials for the end item and therefore can be calculated. Keep in mind that many companies will have parts that are both dependent and independent demand. For example, let's say we work at a car factory. Our car factory puts tires on cars to complete the car. In this case, the tire is a dependent demand and the complete car is independent demand. Now let's say that we also sell tires directly to customers. In this case, the tire is an example of independent demand. This makes it very important for you to understand and be able to identify or find where the demand is being driven from. We will talk more about this in later videos. You now know what dependent and independent demand is. Now, before we go, we would like to invite you to answer a question. What examples of independent and dependent demand can you think of? Share your thoughts in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments, and we'll see you in the next lecture.